Hi, I'm Kate Saunders-Hastings. I'm lecturer in Latin American Studies at the Institute of the Americas, and I'm going to be talking a bit about strategies for managing weekly reading load on the BA History and Politics of the Americas degree. Now, I think that this can be one of the things that a lot of students find really intimidating about the transition to university from their previous schooling experience. This idea of how am I going to manage, how am I going to stay on top of all of this material that I've got to read. Now, independent reading and study really is a cornerstone of any degree in the humanities and the social sciences. So you can expect to spend a lot of your day-to-day working time, week-to-week working time on getting through those course materials. But fortunately, there are a lot of strategies that can help you stay on top of these assignments and a lot of supports available to if you find yourself struggling with any of this material. So the tips that I want to kind of cover today, or the strategies, can kind of be broken down along the sort of classic questions of who, what, when, where, why, and how. We're going to leave the who for last because that's those kind of supports that you can reach out to are what I want to come on to at the end. So start with the what. Now, the reading list that you're going to get given in each course will typically be broken down in a few different categories. You'll have your essential readings. That's the core material you need to make sure that you cover to really be able to understand your lecture materials and to participate in your tutorials and seminars. So that's the key category to really focus in on in your day-to-day planning and work. Now, beyond that, different instructors will organize their reading lists different ways, but you'll often see different categories like recommended reading or background reading or further readings. Now, each module instructor will help you understand how they're using these different categories and what their expectations are around them and what you might get out of the different categories of reading. So for instance, might a background reading be really useful if you're starting to get into a subject area that's entirely new to you, like say the history of Latin America that you've never really looked at before. Maybe you want to do some more sort of basic intro textbook reading to kind of get yourself up to speed. Perhaps another recommended reading might bring in a theme that's connected to the week's material that could expand your understanding of that topic. And then the further reading list might be a really great place to start when it comes to either revising for your exams, starting to research your essays, things like that. So the key point is that you want to make sure you're getting to grips with your course handbooks and course reading lists really early on. And if you're ever in doubt about what the expectations around these reading lists are, you should definitely be sure to ask your module instructor early on so that you're really clear on what exactly it is you need to do. Now, once you've got that sense of what you have to read, figure out where you're going to get these readings from. In a lot of cases, you might be able to use UCL Library's online reading list function, or perhaps you'll find your readings are linked through the Moodle pages that you'll get very used to navigating as a student in the Institute. Most, if not all, of your core course readings, those items on the essential reading lists, will be readily available to you online. It might just be a matter of going to the library, downloading those articles, or accessing the chapters of those ebooks, and making sure that you're gathering together all of the material that you need to digest. And then thinking about, are there any hard copy materials that you need to get your hands on? Are there any multimedia materials like podcasts, videos you're expected to get to grips with that week as well? So think about amassing all together your readings for the different courses you have to do. Then once you know what it is you need to read for the week, where it is you're going to get it from, the next step is to plan out when you're going to do this reading. I think one really useful tool for staying organized and staying on top of your readings is to, at the very beginning of a week, think about slotting in those different items that you know you need to get through, and making sure that you're getting through that essential reading ahead of the relevant seminars or tutorials or lectures so that you're really ready to take full advantage of that face-to-face time that you have with your course instructors and your tutors. Sometimes it might be most helpful to you to think about in terms of trying to get through such and such an article or chapter, maybe a certain number of pages, maybe spend a certain amount of time on the reading for a particular course. I'm the kind of person who really thrives on to-do lists, on schedules, so I like mapping out my week at a time as much as possible. This might be a strategy that works for you. Maybe you're more of a day-to-day kind of person, but the more you can plan out and get into a routine of filling up your days with just routine reading, the more you'll find it easy to stay on top of the reading throughout the term, and the less anxiety-inducing it's going to be when it comes time to go back and revise for your exams and assessments. So we've done the what, the where, and the when. Now, to get kind of a bit more down into the nitty-gritty of coping with these readings, you want to think about the how and the why. So this is when it comes time to do any one particular piece of reading, say a journal article or a chapter from a book. Think first of all about why is it that you're being asked to read this material? Are you trying to get a general background overview? Is it for a particular argument, a particular concept? Is it so that you can compare it to another item on that week's reading list? So go in with that idea about what it is that you're wanting to get out of this reading. Asking that why question both before and after your reading will help you place it in the context of all of the other material that you're digesting that week as well. Now, how are you going to read this particular item? There are a host of strategies for active reading, critical reading, structured academic reading, all of which have a ton of tips available online. So if you do a little bit of research, you'll find a lot of different strategies, tools, and resources. And because everybody learns in such different ways, it might be a really good idea to sort of map out a few different ones and try out a few different possibilities just to see what fits best for you, what feels most natural, and what helps you get through that material and digest and comprehend and retain that material as just possible. But a few basic strategies that can be really useful are, for instance, mapping out what the structure of the reading is before going in and doing that reading in depth. Because academic reading can really be quite different at a university level to, say, reading a novel or a nonfiction book for pleasure, where you might just sort of sink into it and drift along with the prose. You really want to make sure that you're getting to grips with what are the key arguments, what are the evidence bases the authors are using, what are the conclusions they're drawing, and how does it fit with the course material that you're looking at. So I always suggest starting with an abstract, if there is one, like with most journal articles, and then certainly reading the introduction and then the conclusion. There's nothing wrong with skipping ahead to the end when it comes to academic reading. And in between, go through and make a mental note of what kind of subheadings or subtitles the authors use throughout to structure the chapter or the article that you're looking at. This will help you get a sense of how this material is organized, which can really, having that sort of bird's eye view of the material, can really help you get a sense of it ahead of time so that you're already a bit more oriented towards the material as you're going through it. Now, as you're going through it, particularly if you're dealing with more dense material, say a more theoretical piece or something that's tackling quite a complex new concept, it can be helpful to read it, or at least the sort of really dense chunks of it, to read it through once before trying to take notes on it. Because once you've done this kind of mapping of the reading, and then once you've sort of scanned at least once the trickiest bits of the reading, you'll then have a much clearer sense of really, okay, what are the key points that I might want to make note of here? Remember, the thing is that we're very often not asking you to be able to memorize a whole host of dates or names or all of the details that are mentioned in the readings. They'll usually be just a handful of key elements that we really are hoping that you'll grasp onto, digest, and retain so that you can apply that to the material at hand and to later course material as well. And so once you have that overall global picture of what the reading's about, it can become a lot clearer to think about those key points and to see which are the really key arguments that the author is focusing on or that your instructor might want you to take away. But as I said, there are a lot of different strategies out there which might, some of which will suit you better than others. So don't be afraid to try out new things. But obviously, as I said, this independent reading and study really is a cornerstone of your degree program. So staying organized and motivated and on top of it is going to be really useful and central to your success on your degree course. So we want to make sure that if you ever find yourself struggling to get through the material or to understand the material, that you know that you can, you should, and we really hope that you do seek out some support and some advice. So first of all, if you find yourself struggling with the workload in general, with getting through the material week to week, your personal tutor, who will be assigned to you as a faculty member of the department when you arrive as a student, is going to be a really good starting point to talk through what it is you find yourself struggling with, what kind of obstacles might be in your way, and how is it that you might sort of get yourself ready to overcome those and get back on top of that reading. That's something that we're always going to be eager to help you think through, to help support you with, and to make sure that we can be being as successful as possible on your degree course. Now, if you find yourself struggling more with understanding a particular item that you've been asked to read, your peers are a really good starting point to talk that out. Hash it out with your classmates, either in class or outside of class, because talking through these complex ideas and materials together, exchanging points of view, that's such a vital and thrilling part of the university experience. And building that understanding and knowledge together is often one of the best ways that you guys can all arrive at a much fuller, deeper understanding of the material that you're being asked to look at. Of course, you're always welcome to attend the office hours of your module instructor to talk through questions that you have about a particular piece or something that you're struggling to understand, that you've read through, you've tried to apply some of those active reading strategies, and you're just still stuck on how the author's argument fits together, whether their conclusions are really all that convincing, why it is that this is a valuable piece of knowledge you're being asked to acquire for this course. So bring that to your instructors, and most importantly, bring it into the classroom. In your seminars, in your tutorials, this is exactly what we want to hear. What questions do you have about the materials that we've looked at this week? We don't expect you to come into the classroom with all of the answers. One of the best ways you can show your instructors that you're really engaging with the course materials is to ask questions about it. Point out what you didn't understand, highlight what doesn't particularly make sense to you. Throw it to the classroom and to your classmates. What's this thorny concept, this new theory that you guys are all being asked to deal with? So develop strategies that are going to help you get through the material, but don't feel daunted if it doesn't all make perfect sense to you on the first pass through. That's why we have seminars and tutorials, so that we can work out this material together. So hopefully some of this advice will be useful to you. Most I hope that it's reassuring that we are here to support you guys in learning the study skills that you're going to need to be really successful on the course, to manage that workload, to digest those readings, and to get all of the knowledge and value from them that you possibly can. Thanks so much, and I hope to see you around the Institute.